Justin Diamond, Alvin, let's go.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Movie Reviewers channel. Before we get to the storyline, I hope all of you a great day. Please like, share, and also subscribe to my channel. And don't forget to click the bell icon to stay updated with my new videos.
The film opens with a tape recording from April 13, 2008. A father named James is recording his daughter, June, or as her mother always calls her, Junebug. While they're spending time together, June's mom, Grace Allen, enters the room and takes the camera. As she's recording them, the father's nose suddenly begins to bleed, right when the video is stopped. The scene then shifts to someone trimming the video, cutting it before it gets to the nose bleeding part, saving it on their desktop with the name Last Family Trip, and putting it in a folder for June. From the screen, we could assume that James, the father, died because of brain tumors. The unknown person then deletes the Google account, and we can hear goodbye messages from all the contacts. The person is trying to find a new place to live and is moving to Los Angeles. The screen cuts to a crime scene, with police and reporters present, which turns out to be a series from Netflix. It is the year 2022, and June is now 18 years old. She is bombarded with constant text messages from her friends, who are asking for money to buy something. At the same time, her mother calls, and June tells her mother that she doesn't have to use Siri for literally everything. A little background on Grace: after James passed away, she took care of June by herself, and she recently met her new boyfriend, Kevin Lynn. They plan to take a week-long trip to Colombia, so Grace gives June some rules to follow while she's away, which are no alcohol, don't let strangers in, and keep her location turned on. Her mom also mentions Heather, a lawyer who has their house spare key in case June needs anything. June is irritated by the thought of being babysat like a child.
Junebug, if you would calling me that!
But even so, the mention of the emergency money catches June's attention. June immediately gives $120 from the emergency money to Vina, her friend. Just then, Grace's boyfriend Kevin Lynn shows up, and as a new man in the family, he tells June that he truly loves her mom. But before he could say much, June's mom appears, and nicely asks him to book an Uber to the airport. The mom then tells June that she needs to come pick them up on Monday at the Los Angeles airport, while June's facial expressions just beg for her mother to leave. Eventually, June's parents leave with the Uber ride, and Grace sends her goodbye message to her daughter. Her friend Vina then texts her to let her know that they are ready for the party at June's house. Afterwards, Kevin sends June pictures of them on the plane, having made it to Colombia, but then makes it clear that it's her mom sending the message. One evening, Heather, her mom's lawyer, comes to bring food for June, and she expresses some jealousy at Grace's happy relationship with Kevin. A montage then shows June partying and drinking with her friends, continuing to spend her emergency funds, while her parents send her pictures from their trip to Colombia. June spends her days having fun with her friends, until the date on the calendar reveals that it's Father's Day. However, that doesn't stop June from drinking heavily at the party, and eventually vomiting. Later that night, she finds herself alone in the dark, watching the video recording of her dad with the camera. She posts a picture of her dad on Instagram, wishing he was there. The following morning, June awakens to the realization that a week has passed, she must pick up her parents from the airport, and her house is a mess. Without any other option, she hires housekeeping from an online website, and gets ready to pick up her mother and Kevin at the airport. But after a while of waiting, her mom and Kevin don't show up, until the last passenger left the airport. She tries calling and messaging them with no response.
Where are you guys? I've been standing here for— Please leave a message.
Worried, June eventually contacts the hotel where they were staying in Colombia, but the caller only speaks Spanish, so she uses Google Translate to translate what he says, before requesting the hotel's CCTV. She then learns that both of them oddly left all their belongings behind, and that the camera recordings only last for 48 hours for her to view them in person. Not having enough money to go to Colombia, June reaches out to Heather for help, who promptly contacts the embassy in Colombia to get things sorted out. The embassy sends a form for a missing person report, prompting June to request an agent be sent over before the hotel footage disappears. Afterwards, the FBI agent named Park informs her that they don't have jurisdiction to investigate in Colombia, and they need to work with local authorities, so it could take longer since they only have 6 hours left for the CCTV footage. Agent Park asks if she can give them access to her mother's email so they can find where she might be. Unfortunately, no matter how many times June tried to put in the right password for her mother's account, the password was still wrong.
That's okay.
4 hours have passed. Her friend Vina suggested using live cams, like those used in the series they watched, but that didn't yield any fruitful results. She then turns to Go Ninja, an equivalent of TaskRabbit in the US, to hire a housekeeper in Colombia to go to the hotel and retrieve the footage. Javier, who also speaks English, is the person available for her at this time. He hasn't seen his son in 3 years, so when he meets June, he can understand how she feels now. Javier agrees to help her, and June instructs him to go back to the hotel to look at the CCTV footage. Soon, her friend, Vina, comes to her house, and the two start looking for Kevin's Google password, thinking that he uses the same password with all the websites he uses. With the help of Vina's deep voice, they call the customer service line of the website Kevin used, and ask for the password while providing all the information about Kevin for verification.
Julia Chen.
With this brilliant move, June finally gets access to his Google account, and starts tracking Kevin's phone. However, when June checks the journey's history of Kevin, there is no location history for the day before their flight back to LA. June then receives a call from Javier, who regrettably says that the footage is already gone. However, the cleaning lady at the hotel saw 2 Americans leaving for a hardware store, which led June to believe Kevin had something to do with it. June immediately thinks of tracking Kevin's credit card, and then she finds 8 hardware stores in the last area Kevin used his credit card, which Javier has to visit. While Javier is out investigating people who saw Kevin at the hardware store, Heather thinks it's best if June leaves such matters to the police. When June starts to look through Kevin's email, she unintentionally comes upon a picture of a woman. Just a few months ago, Kevin planned to meet the woman, whose email address was Bunnycake. Curious, Vina suggests checking Kevin's blocked contacts, where they find a lot of women there. It is also revealed that Kevin was using different names with different women, all of whom seem to want their money back. Upon checking Kevin's fake names in Google, they finally discover that Kevin was a convicted felon, who had served 3 years in prison before being released from federal custody last year.
Dude's not cheating, he's a con man.
June is annoyed that Agent Park hadn't informed her earlier, and he reminds her that she is illegally accessing the account of Kevin, so they can't use any of this evidence in court. She then tries to look up the account of the woman with the Bunnycake email address, and finds her Instagram. Upon contacting the place where she works, June finds out that the woman in question hasn't shown up to work for 2 weeks now. She checks the history of Kevin's location once more, and discovers that he frequently went to Bunnycake's workplace. Using one of his frequently visited known locations, June manages to get Kevin's friend's phone number. She finds out that they were both ex-convicts, and Jimmy, the guy who tells her this, met Kevin in a church. Plus, Jimmy thinks that Kevin has worked hard to leave his past behind. Then Javier calls June with an update on his progress. He is able to get a receipt of Kevin's purchase, which turns out to be a lock. That's all he could find out, so June thanks him for being really helpful. Afterwards, June continues to scour the internet, and decides to find out how Kevin and her mother first met. To her surprise, she found an email that led her to the first conversation on a dating app between her mother and Kevin. The conversation tells that Kevin and her mother shared a deep bond and had a genuine relationship. Also, the past messages reveal that her mother was already aware of Kevin's past, and he is genuinely in love with Grace Allen. But there's something else that's really important other than finding her mother, which is knowing her past. June then uses the information from her mom's profile, and gets the idea to look for a romantic tourist location closest to the lock shop, and finds a tourist location called the Walled City Love Lock Bridge. Now that everything makes sense, she asks Javier to locate the lock bearing their initials, and it was true that Kevin, Lynn and Grace's names were padlocked. She then uses the live camera to locate Kevin and her mother, and checks the previous footage.
There. He has a lock.
As she watches the live footage, she sees Kevin pull out an engagement ring and propose to her mother. At the same time, June suddenly receives a recording from Agent Park, which shows a video of the kidnapping of Kevin and his mother after the romantic proposal. Agent Park also finds a transfer of money from Grace's account to an encrypted third-party account. After watching this, June becomes devastated by the loss of her mother, without even getting the chance to say goodbye. She then decides to go through the messages Kevin had sent again. This time, she notices that one of the pictures of her mother was a live photo, and she senses something is off when she can't see her mother's face in any of the pictures. Upon clicking the live picture, she realizes that the woman in the picture was not her mother at all. It turns out that the person who was in Colombia with Kevin was none other than Bunny Cake. Afterwards, the FBI held a press conference. According to the FBI, Grace Allen is still in Los Angeles. It is revealed that Grace had been a victim in Kevin's scheme, and the FBI finds Bunny Cake's real name as Rachel Page. It is believed that Kevin had hired a lookalike woman to impersonate June's mother, who had been kidnapped en route to the Los Angeles airport beforehand. Even the Uber driver is believed to have been hired by Kevin, since Uber has no record of the trip. Elsewhere in Colombia, the FBI finds a group of students, who explain that Kevin paid them to do the kidnapping act we saw earlier. Rachel Page is arrested later, but she claims that she was only paid as a call artist by Kevin to dress and walk like Grace Allen, and Kevin had told her that it was all part of a reality TV show. Agent Park then suddenly asks June if her mom has ever gone by any other names, to which June insists that her mom only used the name Grace Allen. It is then revealed on the news that Grace Allen is just one of the aliases of the mystery woman, whose real identity is locked behind a court-ordered seal. This means that Grace Allen is not the mother's real name. Heather, who is June's mother's lawyer, agrees with June when June says that the mother never told them about this. The FBI confesses that Allen is not a suspect at the moment. However, many people in the community wonder if Grace was Kevin's partner, so that she could disappear and start a new life somewhere. The internet goes crazy over this revelation, as it becomes the main news online. June is tremendously stressed about this and did not accept what the community said. She decides to look into Kevin's internet history, and discovers an encrypted messaging application called Guys. June tries to log in, and to her surprise, she finds Kevin's chat with someone from about 10 hours ago. She pretends to be Kevin to find out the user's identity. After obtaining the user's phone number, June runs it through Kevin's laptop, and discovers that it belongs to. It belongs to Heather's office. June decides to go to Heather's office, while wearing a smartwatch and recording everything that happens. Inside Heather's office, she looks at the computer and sees that files are being deleted, meaning someone had just been there. She also finds a photo with a note that threatens death if Heather says anything. Just then, June found Heather's necklace scattered on the floor. She goes into the office storage room, only to find that Heather has been killed. Later on, Agent Park thinks that Heather knew something that Kevin didn't want them to know. But the weird thing is that Kevin is still in Colombia, so who the hell did this? From a video that was sent to June, the FBI managed to find Kevin's hiding place, and when Kevin tried to escape, the police shot him dead. Seemingly at a dead end, June begins listening to her mom's old voicemails that she never listened to.
Hey, sweetheart, it's Mom.
Hey, Junebug. It's Mommy. I love you.
Here she suddenly remembers her childhood call, Junebug. And so, she tries to log in with another possible password, and luckily, the word Junebug enables her to access her mother's Gmail account. She immediately checks her mom's last location, and finds that the location data was lost near the Los Angeles airport, and June also discovers one blocked email that says she deserves to know. June proceeds to search for the person who sent the text in Kevin's email, and this leads her to discover security cameras that Kevin bought for the blocked email user. She logs into the CCTV app with Kevin's email and a new password, and it turns out that the CCTV cameras are installed at an abandoned house. To June's surprise, the house turns out to be her old vacation home, and she even recognizes some of the interior spaces. Soon after, she receives a call from Jimmy, Kevin's friend from the church, saying that he has some information about Grace. June is scared when Jimmy suddenly arrives in front of her house. Knowing that June is scared because Jimmy was an ex-convict, the man removes his head covering, only to reveal himself as her father, James. June can't believe that the man she thought had died 12 years ago is standing right in front of her.
You deserve to know what happened.
The father immediately explains that his mother was not Grace Allen, but Sarah. He says that he and Grace used to fight a lot, and that one day, Grace took June away from him after putting him in jail for 12 years on false charges. James keeps mentioning that Grace wants to keep June away from him, and he admits that he met Kevin in prison. Here June realizes that James had everything planned out before Kevin met Grace. She believes that her dad wants to take her back, and that her father is lying about her mom. The scared June tries to answer Vina's incoming call for help, but her father kidnaps her, and puts her in the boot of his car. Later, a playback video from 2008 shows June playing with her dad. But as it turns out, when June moves to another room, James shows that he was emotionally unstable by scolding at her mother for no reason. Plus, Grace, or Sarah by her real name, found a lot of drugs hidden in the attic of their old house. Aside from his drug use, the scene reveals that James was a domestic abuser who endangered all of them. A very heated argument takes place over the phone between Sarah and James, and after Sarah reports James to the police, he threatens that he will find Grace. Afterwards, to keep June safe, Sarah goes through a procedure of terminating all her previous accounts, dissociating from all family members, and changing her identity to Grace Allen, which was suggested by her lawyer Heather. It is also revealed that Grace trimmed the original recording at the start of the film to remove the part about James assaulting her. Back to the present, James has brought June to a secluded house, forcefully dragging her inside, and tying her to a chair. With a loaded gun, he makes his way to the hut behind the house, and it turns out that he has kidnapped Sarah. He says he wanted to kill Sarah for separating him from June for 12 years, but luckily, Sarah manages to knock James in the face, and locks him in the shed. James begins shooting at the lock to break it open. Meanwhile, Grace manages to find June tied up to a chair. According to Sarah, James killed Heather in order to hide everything about their past. Unfortunately, before they can make their escape, James catches them off guard from behind and locks them from outside. He then goes outside with a shovel, and starts digging a grave for Sarah. While panicking, June notices a camera in the room, and calls out for anyone that may be watching the stream. And that's when she remembers her smartwatch. She manages to use her smartwatch to contact Javier. She asks him to find her Instagram, and the house number on the photo she posted of her dad and call the police. But all of a sudden, the line drops. Just then, James makes his way back inside, and demands that June give him the watch. To protect her daughter, Sarah stands in between them, which leads to James shooting her. Scared, June tries to get away from her dad, but he manages to tackle her to the ground. But before things can escalate further, Grace stabs James in the neck with a broken shard. But James still manages to get up, and leave the room, locking both June and her severely injured mother in. The father looks for the nearest hospital, but before he can, he falls to his death. June rushes to her dying mother, and starts apologizing to her over everything. She then remembers that she once told her mother to stop using Siri for literally everything. This sparks a bulb in her head. She remembers that her smartphone was in front of her computer. And so, June approaches the CCTV, and uses the cameras to tell Siri to call the police. Later, a SWAT team arrives at the house, and save both of them.
30 squads to control, we have.
It is then revealed that the story of abduction of Grace Allen has been turned into one of the episodes in series on Netflix. Several months have passed, Grace has survived her gunshot wound, and June is in college. After what happened, the daughter values the time she spends with her mother more, and feels bad about how she used to treat her mother. Grace has also started a friendship with Javier after June introduced them, and this is where the film ends.